My name is Yogi Aaron, and today's topic is gurus or gimmicks. And I have been leading yoga teacher trainings now for over, almost 20 years now. And just recently I've been getting a lot of emails that have been coming to me of people that have many questions about yoga teacher trainings and whether or not, a teacher is the right teacher for them. I also came across a couple of social media posts and I wanted to, that kind of inspired this conversation. And one of the social media posts was of this person who was proclaiming themselves to be a great yoga teacher. Their offering to you was to do handstands. They were claiming that they had taken all these yoga classes and they were never able to stand on their hands. And so therefore, they had the magic thing that could help you become a better yogi by learning to stand on your hands. There was also another post that I came across. It was actually an email that landed up in my inbox from a very prominent yoga teacher who's been teaching almost as long as I have, I think. And this person was proclaiming the benefits of opening her hips. She was the open the hips expert because that, I guess, is what she needed to do to help you become a better yoga teacher. This kind of inspired this desire in me to start having a little bit more conversations, and I actually have quite a bit about the topic. There's a blog post that I wrote called The 5 Reasons Why Your Yoga Teacher Might Not Be Your Guru, and also to my Stop Stretching podcast in episode 7, I talk about the dark side of yoga and sort of the lineage of yoga teachers and things that you kind of want to look out for. So that's a little bit about what inspired this conversation. And I just want to say, like, right on the onset, so I hopefully won't waste anybody's time and waste your time, but that if you are a person that believes that yoga is about opening your hips, and if you are a person that believes that yoga is about standing on your hands, then you should just tune out right now, because that's not where I come from. I would actually say that yoga should not teach you how to stand on your hands. Instead, yoga should teach you how to stand on your own 2 feet and stand well in life. And so what I try to do in these conversations is dispel some of the smoke and mirrors in choosing a good yoga teacher training. In finding a yoga teacher training that's right for you is you have to weed through the smoke and mirrors. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there. And the smoke and mirrors is fun. I mean, it's always great to go to a magic show and be wowed, But I would, as I kind of said in the last conversation, that if you want to be a gymnast, then don't waste your time in a yoga teacher training. Go and study to be a gymnast. If you want to learn how to create beautiful dance sequences, then learn about dance choreography. And there's just so much that you can do that is out there that you don't need to spend the money or the time to do a yoga teacher training, that you can actually go and get specialized in those kind of areas. So I want to just kind of share a little bit about my own journey and kind of what has brought me to this point and got me to being a teacher that I am today. And right on the onset, I'm very blessed in my own life to have had the teachers that I've had. I don't know how I ended up with them. My very first teacher actually was David Swenson. I considered him my teacher. I've also considered Brian Kess my teacher, and Eric Schiffman. Ironically, Eric Schiffman studied with Krishnamacharya, who I've never studied with, but I've studied with people who have studied with him. And I've had other teachers, Swami Rama of the Himalayas, and his student Panditji from the Himalayan Institute, and then thereby Rod Stryker. And what I was given by them was a deep and profound understanding of the yoga tradition, which is something I think is very hard to get. It's very hard to find that. And I can say that during my journey, and I think this happened to me at a much younger years, that I was a very devout Ashtanga yoga person. Ashtanga is kind of like this name brand of yoga that was invented by Pattabhi Jois. A lot of people like to think it's a traditional style of yoga, but it's not.
I have a bad feeling about this.
It's just a name brand being like, you know, McDonald's of hamburgers. Ashtanga is like the McDonald's of yoga. And I was a very devout Ashtangi. I wanted to go and study with Pattabhi Jois. As I progressed in my own sort of Ashtanga practice, however, there was something that started to shift inside of me. And what started to shift was this deep yearning to know what yoga is. I had this very deep and profound yearning to know that there was something more than a bunch of jump backs, that more than a bunch of chaturanga dandasanas, and more than just like looking good on your yoga mat while sweating a lot. And that kind of questioning was what ultimately actually led me to my teacher Rod, which then opened up this whole world of really the unseen that Rod in his own way, and Panditji, and then, you know, Swami Rama, were able to tear back that veil between really what we sometimes in the yoga tradition call the seen and the unseen. That veil that stands between myself and truly knowing myself. And I would just say right there that that's what a yoga teacher, if you're going to choose a yoga teacher, that's the kind of yoga teacher you want to choose. Is somebody that's going to tear that veil back for you and help you to really know yourself at all levels. I mean, that is like, I think that's an amazing thing, or amazing bar that we need to start setting in the yoga world. Yeah, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there, but who is going to show you all those parts of yourself? So as I'm sharing this, please share in the comments section if you have any questions, or if you have any experiences of meeting a teacher who was able to tear that veil back for you and show you that unseen world. So that's definitely what you're looking for. I've also been to India more than a dozen times, and I've sat at the feet of many teachers in India, and I've been very blessed to visit some very sacred pilgrimages, and all of those things help me to grow not just as a yogi, but as a person, and I think become a better person and become a better teacher for it. So that's a little bit about me. I've been teaching yoga for 30 years now, and I have gone through many different transformations. And the first transformation I kind of want to talk a little bit about, and that is when you're choosing a yoga teacher training and you're choosing a yoga teacher, one of the questions you should be asking yourself is, what do they really know about the human body? I've been doing, in preparation for this kind of conversation, I've been doing a deep dive into a lot of different yoga teacher trainings, and in that journey of looking at different yoga teacher trainings, one of the things that I constantly find or see is a lot of very vague things about anatomy. And what I want to share with you is kind of like 3 things that might happen to you if you three things that might happen to you if you're getting into a yoga teacher training. The first thing is the yoga teacher, in order to teach anatomy, might have you just color in a lot of anatomy charts. So do you remember when you were like in grade school and you learned about biology and you learned about anatomy and your teacher had you color in like where all the muscles are? I swear to God, this is the format for a lot of yoga teacher trainings. They just, okay, we're gonna learn about anatomy. Your homework now is to color in a lot of these coloring charts, anatomy charts. So that's one of the things to look out for. Another thing to look out for is they will bring in the experts. And usually the expert is somebody who is an expert, who might be a physiologist, might be a physical therapist, and it's great. They bring a lot of knowledge, but it's not really applicable. It's something that they're going to talk for, a couple of hours about one day, usually just one day, one afternoon. And then you're going to go, wow, that was amazing. And then you're never going to remember anything about it. So that's something else to kind of look out for. The third category of yoga teacher typically, not always, but typically, is that they will just make up a lot of stuff. It's a teacher who's never done any training in anatomy. They don't really know anything, but they think that they know a lot about the body, and so that they teach you what they know. And which isn't really anything. And I can speak to this third category because that was sort of me for many years. I thought I understood the body. I never did any kind of formal training. And it really wasn't until I ended up in the hospital, in the emergency room actually, because of yoga related injuries for the most part. And that was kind of like a moment of pause when I realized I really needed to get my stuff together. If I'm going to teach people about the body, I need to have a better understanding. And so this is one of my very much pet projects over the past few years, is to create what I've been calling applied yoga anatomy and muscle activation. So applied yoga anatomy and muscle activation is about many different things, but one of them is that we're learning not just about anatomy, about basic anatomy, but that we're learning how to apply it. That's why the word there, applied, is in there. That we're learning how to apply this anatomy into our yoga classes, into our yoga practice. That it's not just something that's kind of woo-woo, or interesting or out there, but that we're actually experiencing it. So when we talk about the cause of tight hamstrings being weak quads, for example, quads that are not activated, well, that you can experience what it's like to actually get the quads activated and find out, oh yeah, when I get my quads activated properly, muscle activation ergo, that my hamstrings are no longer tight. Like this tightness is no longer in my body. If you want to test, and I'll give this to you now, so that if you're really wanting to choose a yoga teacher training, ask your yoga teacher why muscles are tight. And if they give you an answer such as, well, muscles are tight because, well, they just get tight with age, and, well, we just need to focus on opening up the body, and we need to stretch because it feels good, then you shouldn't just dismiss that yoga teacher training. You should run and sprint the opposite direction, because that's a horrible answer. And they just generally probably don't know what they're talking about. They have no clue about why muscles are really tight. And so that's the problem in the yoga world, is that there's a lot of erroneous perceptions, and this is just being continuously taught to other people, continuously shared with other people, these erroneous perceptions, and then other people just keep sharing these erroneous perceptions. So that's a little bit about the first red flag, is around this anatomy business. What are they actually teaching who's teaching it, and how is this really going to fit into my yoga classes so that I can ultimately teach my yoga classes safely.
Slow and steady, safety first when on the road.
But we're not on a road.
Or the Maury.
That's the most important thing, because as yoga teachers, our first job as yoga teachers is that we're teaching people how to move and how to breathe, and we're teaching people how to do that safely. Okay? The next thing, the red flag, is when did they actually become a yoga teacher? When did they finish their yoga teacher training? And what is their certification level? So a lot of yoga teachers, and I've seen this is another epidemic in the yoga world, that for the longest time, and I'm not sure what Yoga Alliance's policy is on this currently. I should know that for this presentation, but I don't, because I heard that they were changing it. But for the longest time, you only needed to have a 200-hour certification to lead a yoga teacher training. And so what a lot of yoga teachers do is they'll go and get their yoga teacher training, they'll get their 200-hour certification, and within a few months, maybe even a year, they're like, oh, I should lead yoga teachers now.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
I see this all the time. In fact, there's people that I know that are leading yoga teacher trainings, and they tell me that they're leading yoga teacher trainings, and I'm like, oh Lord, they have no business leading yoga teacher trainings. They don't know what they're doing. They're just like, well, we should all just share in the practice, and well, I know how to teach Trikonasana. There's a lot more to yoga than teaching Trikonasana. There's a lot more to yoga than teaching downward facing dog. So as I'm going along here, again, please share your thoughts in the comment section below. Share what your experiences, if you've done a yoga teacher training, if you've done anything like this, please share your experiences below. Okay, so they've just completed their 200-hour, maybe they've just completed their 500-hour. So what is their experience as teachers? How much have they actually been teaching and experiencing yoga? How much have they invested in their practice? So that's another red flag to look out for. Another red flag to look out for is, who are their teachers? What is their lineage? Are they teaching an authentic Himalayan lineage, or is their lineage some corporate structure? We're actually starting to see that a lot now. A lot of people's lineages are literally, and you can't make this up, is really a corporation. That is very sadly, a lot of people's lineages these days is just a corporation. And we see this a lot, that yoga is becoming sort of the franchises, and there's big powerful franchises that are starting to open up a lot of different yoga centers, and they offer yoga teacher trainings, and that for a lot of people is their lineage, is a corporation. So who is the teacher? Have they really studied this tradition? And as I mentioned earlier, have they had a teacher who has torn back the veil between the seen and the unseen? Have they had a teacher who has taken them on the path of sharing the most sacred and most auspicious aspect of this tradition? So that's another red flag to look for, and thing you might want to consider when choosing a yoga teacher training. Have they had any substantial life experience? This is kind of something you have to do a little bit of a deeper dive into as you choose a yoga teacher, I believe. But what is their life experience? There's a lot of people that are calling themselves teachers, that are calling themselves gurus, who have had really no life experience. And you might say to me, Yogi Aaron, you just said that you should find a teacher who can teach you about this tradition. And that is true. You do want somebody that can teach you about this tradition. But there's a lot of yoga teachers that are telling you how to live life, but they've never had any life experience. And that's, I think, is a really important thing. And you want to find a yoga teacher who doesn't just have a lot of life experience, but is also living a successful life. They're making things happen. They're doing stuff in the world. They're successful in their businesses. And when I say successful, I'm not talking necessarily monetarily successful, but their businesses are thriving, that they have a thriving business. And you can kind of see what's going on the outside. You can tell very quickly if they're a thriving yoga teacher. If you go to their yoga classes and they go on and on and on about how hard life is, how hard things are, and that and they kind of complain about many different things, I would again suggest that you just not take their classes, but that you run and sprint the opposite direction. So that's another big red flag. Like if you're taking class with a teacher who's, and I'm not gonna say what this might look like, but their life is a mess. They're constantly complaining. They're, whispering to the side of you, how many dysfunctional relationships they had, blah, 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 blah.
And just feel the weight of the world on your back. And it's crushing you, but stay in the present because there is no future, because the government sold it to the highest bidder. Just breathe, your life means nothing, and your children's lives are worth nothing, and the only thing that matters is the almighty dollar. And just feel the head, drop your head down. That's right. And just bang your head a little bit, because you're a little bit angry, Sure, you're just a little tiny bit angry.
That might not be the sign of a teacher that you want to study from. So you do want to take classes and learn from a teacher who is walking the talk, who is living the life of a yogi. And again, the life of a yogi is someone who's thriving in life, who's living life successfully, and really who's making shit happen. I kind of like to invoke Gandhi a lot, which is kind of like, or Nelson Mandela. But Gandhi was someone who took the teachings of the Gita, and Krishna said, go out and live life. Go and make things happen. Stop standing on the sidelines of life. And I find that a lot of yoga teachers really do that. They live on the sidelines of life. We're called to live life really big and go out to manifest and live your life purpose. So those are some things on my list. I also have on my list is another red flag to check out what is their curriculum. Is their curriculum amazing? And also is their curriculum focused? Like sometimes you look at teacher training curriculums, you're going to learn about yin, you're going to learn about hatha, you're going to learn about restorative yoga, you're going to learn about ashtanga yoga, iyengar yoga, power yoga, fly yoga. There's like 10 yogas sometimes that they list that you're going to learn. First of all those yogas, might be interesting. They're really, again, most of those are just name brand yogas. They're not part of the tradition. Second of all, if you're going to take a teacher training, part of teacher training should be to help you become steeped in a tradition. Like get really steeped in the tradition. That you walk out of that and you have an understanding of what that tradition is. As opposed to you know, if you had 10 tea bags in front of you and 1 cup of hot water, and you take 1 tea bag and drop it in, you take another tea bag and drop it in, you do that all the way down the line, and you just kind of like plunk it in and take it out, you just end up with a diluted mess. And we see that as a problem with the way that a lot of people teach yoga these days. It's a diluted mess. Get steeped in a philosophy and an idea, so that way you can go back out into the world to, again, help people to remove that veil between the seen and the unseen, to tear back that veil between their own sort of dysfunction, to opening up the universe of limitless possibility, so that they can understand and see within themselves the best version of themselves, and they leave with that deep commitment to go out to manifest that version of themselves. Yoga, a good yoga teacher is a teacher that is compassionate, is sharing the wisdom of the practice, of the tradition, and also in the same way is able to challenge you and help you to see all parts of yourself and teach you how to nurture those parts of yourself that are helping you to thrive in this world. That's what a good yoga teacher will do. So I hope that you enjoyed this little conversation, and I want to appreciate the time you took to join me in this conversation. Thank you so much. Again, please leave your comments, leave your thoughts below, share with me anything that you could relate to, and any kind of experiences that you've had where you go, yep, I can relate to what Yogi Aaron just said. And also, if you've had a good teacher, please share with me if you've had a great teacher and what that teacher did for you. Namaste, everybody. Have a super wonderful day.